This is a Sports Catastrophe production. Hey there, how there, ho there. It's Jeff Cutastrophe, and welcome you to another Sports Catastrophe on this day. And we started a brand new month, so it's February the 1st. And on this day, February 1st, 2009, one of the best Super Bowls around came to play. It was Super Bowl 43 from Tampa Bay. It's weird how almost every Super Bowl video I do this year, like for 2023, what I do on this day happens in Tampa. Anyway, Pittsburgh beat Arizona. Pittsburgh became the first team to win 6 Super Bowls, breaking the tie with the Cowboys and the Niners. The Cowboys aside, the Cardinals were looking for their first NFL title since 1947, the longest championship drought in the league. And you thought Cleveland had the longest drought. Nope. It's the Cardinals franchise. Anyway, the Cardinals looked pretty impressive. 98.7 million people watched the Super Bowl. It was the most watched Super Bowl in history at that time. Obviously, it's a little bit biased because more people were living in America at that time than the 1980s and all that. They say one of the best Super Bowls of all time. It was actually ranked number 1 for top 10 Super Bowls of all time by NFL Network and number 4 for the greatest games of all time. So, yeah, this was huge and all that. And this was the last time John Madden would commentate a Super Bowl, as he would retire 2 months later and stay retired. So, anyway, it looked very huge and all that. Now, Pittsburgh and Arizona had 2 different roads and all that. Pittsburgh won Super Bowl 40 in 2006. Bill Cowher decided to retire on top and leaves some things and all that. Ken Whisenhunt was actually the top priority to be succeeding Cowher in Pittsburgh. However, Whisenhunt decided to accept the head coaching job with Arizona, ironically the team that Pittsburgh was facing in this Super Bowl. Arizona was a massive franchise. The Cardinals franchise, which started in Chicago, then went to St. Louis. Yes, there was a St. Louis Cardinals football team. And then went to Arizona in 88. Had only won a few titles, but in 1947, the Chicago Cardinals, that was the last time the Cardinals franchise had won a title. And never went to the Super Bowl. In fact, since their title in 1947, they only won 1 playoff game, and that was the wild card game in Dallas against the Cowboys in 98. The Steelers decided to hire Mike Tomlin, who was the defensive coordinator for the Vikings. And Mike Tomlin still is coaching the Steelers to this day. So, yeah, it's amazing how since the 1970 merger of the AFL and NFL, only 3 coaches in Pittsburgh history: Chuck Noll, Bill Cowher, and Mike Tomlin. Ironically enough, the Cardinals and Steelers actually were merged into a team for 1944, but because World War II depleted the rosters. Anyway, a lot of people said that the Cardinals were cursed because they won the 1925 NFL title when it should have went to Pottsville, who were based in Pennsylvania, but because they played an unsanctioned exhibition against Notre Dame, the NFL got ticked off. So anyway, it was just huge. You got 2 teams with long histories and all that. So it's the Steelers. The Steelers, in the first year under Tomlin, won 10 games in 2007. Didn't do that well, but then the next year, the 2008-09 season, they won 12. Second best team in the AFC. And they were defensively sound, only giving up 13.9 points per game. Lamar Woodley and James Harrison both put up gigantic sack leaders. Harrison had 16, Woodley had 11.5. James Ferrier was a good linebacker. Troy Polamalu was still part of the defensive backfield for the Steelers. Ben Roethlisberger would lead Pittsburgh offensively with Heinz Ward, Antonio Holmes, and Heath Miller catching the balls. Willie Parker was a good running back, too. So anyway, the Cardinals, it was brutal for them. They they were one of the laughingstock franchises around. So was Cleveland, but anyway. Under Whisenhunt, the Cardinals were 8-8 in 2007. However, Arizona put on a clinic. They were 7-3 at one time, but then they hit a brutal wall. They did get the 4th seed in the playoffs, winning the NFC West with a 9-7 mark. But one of the big stories for Arizona was Kurt Warner coming out of nowhere. Like, he was good for the Rams, and then the Rams dumped him off to the Giants, and then he lost it. But he reemerged. He was 37 years old in that season for the Cardinals, but somehow, in some way, he put up a clinic. Yeah, he did lose his starting job due to mediocre performances and injuries. However, Matt Leinart completely screwed the pooch as well. But, of course, well, Leinart got injured and Warner was there. Warner had Larry Fitzgerald, Anquan Bolden, and Steve Preston to throw the balls to. Edgerrin James was on the Cardinals for running. And the defense looked good. Bertrand Berry, Dockett, Carlos Dansby, Adrian Wilson, and Dominic Rodgers-Cromartie. So the playoffs happened. The Steelers were the 2 seed. That meant they got home field. They would take on the Chargers and beat them 35-24. And then they would face the Ravens on home turf and win the AFC title game 23-14. The Cardinals had to play Atlanta in the wildcard game on home turf, won 30-24, and then went to Carolina and beat the Panthers 33-13. And then the Eagles, who also were a 6th seed and almost went to the Super Bowl, just like the Ravens. The Eagles lost to the Cardinals 32-25. Yes, I did pick the Eagles to win that game. And somehow, someway, the Cardinals won 3 games in that playoff run. More than they ever had. So it was hard to believe. Anyway, the Cardinals were huge and all that. So anyway, it was in Tampa. Pittsburgh entered the game as a 7-point favorite. And, there was a lot of things and all that. Actually, there was a huge economic downturn because this was the Great Recession. And lots of parties and all that were canceled and all that. So anyway, the Super Bowl ads didn't have the big 3 automakers, Ford, Chrysler, and GM, because of their business struggles. But NBC broadcast the game in the U.S. making it the first time in 12 years NBC had the Super Bowl. It was Al Michaels and John Madden. It was amazing what they could do. And all that. Then with this, John Madden became the first announcer to do a Super Bowl for all 4 U.S. networks. He called 5 Super Bowls for CBS when they had the NFC coverage, and then went over to Fox when they had the NFC coverage, and did 3 Super Bowls for Fox. And then ABC, after Fox let Madden go, had him for a few Super Bowls, and then he went to NBC in 2006. So anyway, he did his job and all that. So anyway, it was the 3rd most watched Super Bowl in history based on things. Well, it's behind the 2000 Super Bowl 45, Super Bowl 44, and the final episode of MASH. So anyway, it was not so good and all that. You got commercials and all that. So anyway, Bruce Springsteen and the East Street Band did halftime and all that. So anyway, the game started off. Pittsburgh started quickly with 10 points. Jeff Reed scored a field goal, and then Gary Russell, the immortal Gary Russell, with a touchdown run, 10-0. Arizona got a touchdown reception by Ben Patrick, the immortal Ben Patrick, from Kurt Warner. Neil Rackers kicked the extra point, 10-7. And then came the crazy play near the end of the second quarter when Warner was in the red zone, threw a pass, and then James Harrison stole the ball right in the end zone. And then Harrison kept on running, and he ran and he ran. He's not a fast guy, but he ran and ran and ran and got the touchdown. 100 yards, longest play in Super Bowl history to that point by any manner. There were flags, but fortunately they're on Arizona, so that meant Pittsburgh got to keep their touchdown. Jeff Reed would kick a field goal to make it 20-7, and the third quarter ended, and it looked like Pittsburgh had everything going for them. But no. Kurt Warner passed to Larry Fitzgerald for a touchdown with 7 minutes left in the game, making it 20-14. Pittsburgh would have a few drives. Unfortunately, though, there was a penalty in the end zone. If there's an offensive penalty in the end zone, it's an automatic 2-point safety, and that's what Arizona did. Hardwick for Pittsburgh had a holding call on a 2-point safety, 2016. And then they got the ball back because of the free kick off of the safety, and then Warner went to work, throwing a nice crisp pass to Larry Fitzgerald over the middle, and Fitzgerald galloped past the Pittsburgh defenders. Touchdown. Arizona was up 23-20. Can you believe it? Arizona was going to win the Super Bowl. But never count out Ben Roethlisberger. He was there before, winning the Super Bowl 3 years prior. And he did an 8-play, 78-yard drive, taking a couple minutes off the clock. He had a few key passes to Santonio Holmes, and then he threw what is described as the toe tap in Super Bowl lore. He threw a pass to the back right of the end zone. Santonio had 2 defenders near him, and he managed to catch the ball, tap his toes, touchdown. Pittsburgh is up 27-23. Arizona did have a chance, but they didn't capitalize. And Pittsburgh became the first team to win 6 Super Bowls, as I said earlier, 27-23. But Arizona and Pittsburgh did set a low mark. The fewest combined rushing yards in Super Bowl history, 91. Well, they ran the ball. They combined ran the ball 38 times, those 2 teams. So they didn't even get 3 yards of run, all that. Well, Kurt Warner and Ben Roethlisberger are passers first, if you will. Warner got 31 completions for 377 yards, 3 touchdowns, and a pick. His 377 yards became second in Super Bowl history behind his own mark of 414 in Super Bowl 34 when they took down the Titans. However, Tom Brady at Super Bowl 51 would break Warner's mark with 466 yards. So anyway, Fitzgerald caught 7 passes for 127 yards and 2 touchdowns. He would likely have been the MVP if the Cardinals had won. But no, that didn't happen. Roethlisberger went 21 for 30, 256 yards, a touchdown and interception. Darnell Dockett had 3 sacks, which was a Super Bowl record. And it worked out. Roethlisberger was MVP, right? No, Santonio Holmes was MVP. I thought it was Roethlisberger. Guess not. Well, it was huge and all that. And, the Pittsburgh Steelers got the Super Bowl ring. They always won it. Unfortunately for Pittsburgh, that's been their 6th and final Super Bowl ring as of 2023. So, yeah. But anyway, it was still a pretty good Super Bowl finish. I think one of the best ever. I mean, it won't beat 1 yard short in 2000 and the mistake by Seattle not giving Marshawn Lynch the ball in 2015. But, it is what it is. Anyway, I'm Jeff Diamond. I do